Hello, everyone. It's Raz from the Semi Retired Samurai. And today I want to talk to you about what I would do differently if I had to start over again in my 20s. Now, I'm sure a lot of people wish they could rewind the clock and go back to the days when they're younger and make different decisions. For me, I felt that I waited too long, and I wish I had done this a lot sooner or even knew about not worrying about what other people expected me, think of me. And I think I got so wound up in trying to please my parents and what their wishes were. They wanted me to finish university, get the traditional job, go out and become a doctor, lawyer, or some kind of professional. To them, they, as Chinese immigrants, they wanted stability, and they didn't want me to, I guess, suffer like they did, trying to make ends meet. And I always want to please them, like most kids do. And in the end, it became a detriment because it took away from my happiness and what I felt was my strongest attributes. Now, I was never a strong student. I was a C student for most of the time. And I really didn't like school. I think the only thing I liked was being artistic sometimes. But most of all, I liked spending my time in the gym, in gym classes. So I love fitness. I loved martial arts. I've always loved martial arts. And I wanted to do something in martial arts, but I was always told by my father that that was not a proper career. So I've always abandoned those dreams. So I kind of went through school not knowing what I was going to do for the rest of my life. And when it came time to choose a career, they pressured me into choosing something, but it cannot be a profession, quote unquote, that didn't make a lot of money or was not looked upon as high status. So the trades were out of the question. And I wasn't sure where I was going at the time. I did know one thing, that I wanted to be wealthy. I wanted to control my time. I didn't want people telling me what to do and when to do it. I've always hated that feeling of being forced to do something against my will and against my wishes. And looking back at it, if I were to give advice to my 20-year-old self, I would have said, don't worry about hanging around with and trying to impress your friends. Instead, educate yourself. If you don't have the money or the resources or the connections, then the library, because we didn't have the internet back then, is probably your best resource of self-education. And that's what I would have told myself, was to self-educate myself more, because I wasn't interested in the topics that were studied in school. I felt that it didn't really serve where I want to go. Learning Shakespeare, all that stuff wasn't going to get me to my end goal, which was to be wealthy. So I would have told myself, actually, if I was my older self advising my younger self, I would have said, go out and read books on success, study people like Anthony Robbins, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. Read books like The Millionaire Next Door. That was a very transformative book for me in my 20s on the everyday millionaire and how they achieve financial independence through just regular jobs. And that really changed my thinking, my mindset, and also start establishing your connections. Go find people who know more than you, who are experts in the field. I would have told my younger self, go out and ask a very successful person if you would like to, if you can take them out for coffee and pick their brain a little bit. And maybe perhaps ask if you can just go to them, with them to work, just to learn, watch the way they operate, watch the way they do things. And another thing that I would have told my younger self is to study public speaking, because I was quite shy, and to have great public speaking skills is a great asset to have if you can communicate with other people. And the other thing I would have learned at an early age was study marketing and sales. Because if you do work a regular job and you do lose your job, you can get a sales job anywhere and make money. And that was probably the advice I would have given to my younger self, is to not worry about other people and what they thought of me. And I think a lot of younger kids and even adults worry so much about what others think of them, and they don't think about what they can do now to better their lives. Because if I had kept this mindset, I wouldn't have achieved the things that I achieved today. I remember my father, when I was younger, he would always say that I was never a good martial artist. And I believed him at one point. So I went into other sports and excelled in there, but my love was always for the martial arts. And I came back later on to study martial arts, and eventually, as you know now, I own a couple of schools, and I became quite good at what I do, and a professional at it as well. So I want everyone to remember that, because I could have taken his advice and taken it to heart and abandoned my dream of becoming a professional martial artist and making a career out of something that I love and I'm passionate about. And I don't want other kids to go through life to abandon their dreams, and later on, when they're older, wish they had done it. Because one of the more ironic and interesting things was, years later, actually decades later, my father said to me, son, that was my dream, was to have a martial arts school and to build a martial arts business, and I couldn't make it, but you did. My dad never tells me that he's proud of me, doesn't hug me. He was just not that type of guy. But I knew from then, when he said those words to me, that he respected me. And that felt really good. That felt really good, because not that the fact that I said, okay, well, I prove you wrong, but more or less like I had fulfilled my dream. And it felt so good to be able to wake up every day and to go and get paid to do the thing that you love. I always ask, people always ask me at events, like let's say a wedding or stuff like that, and we always sit around the table and they ask, people, what do they do for a living? And this is the usual conversation that people say, I'm a mortgage broker, or I'm an accountant, I'm a lawyer. But rarely, almost none, say that they are a professional martial artist and an entrepreneur. And it really brings up a lot of great conversations, because people really want to know about your profession. They ask a lot of questions about what you do. And I think that makes it really cool, because you're not like everybody else, right? And you're quite unique, and the conversations you have with people are quite quite interesting when it revolves around martial arts. So that's what I will have to say for the first point is, once again, do what you love and don't worry about what others expect of you, because it's better to go forward with your dreams, and maybe you don't make it, but that's okay, because at least you tried, and now you know, and you can go on with your life knowing that you gave it your best. And not everything always turns out right, because there's times I second guess what I'm doing, because not everything is successful all the time. I've had business ventures that have gone sideways that haven't worked out. But the main thing is, through martial arts, I've trained my mind to be strong and to be resilient. And I don't listen to what the naysayers say. Now, the second part of what I would tell my 20-year-old self that I'll do differently is to stop delaying life till later. I realized this when I was in my 50s, to tell you the truth, and I always said that I was going to travel more when I got to this level of wealth accumulation. And it always became the next year, the following year, and the following year after that. And now that I'm 56, going on to 57, I look back at that and I said, wow, I wish that I had told myself earlier just to not worry so much about money, and just to take a budget and to take a little trip here and there to experience more. Now, fortunately for me, I'm still very healthy. I keep very active. But there are a few things that were ingrained in me as a kid. My mom was always very much a worrywart. She always worried about the past, and she worried about the future, but she never seemed to concentrate on the present or enjoy the present. It always seems like she was in this constant emotional battle. And that got passed on to me, because she was always talking about the future, saving for the future, sacrificing for the future. And I didn't realize that till I started losing people in my life. And that was probably a few years ago during COVID, when we lost 2 years of our lives, just not being able to see family, not being able to see friends, having our travel restricted. And when I lost two of my aunts that year, and I lost a friend, that's when I realized how time was so precious, because I wish I can go back before that and get a chance to speak to them again and to see them again, because I didn't even get a chance to say goodbye to them, because as during COVID, we weren't allowed to have in-person events. And I haven't stopped thinking of it, even years later now, after COVID. I still think about them all the time. And I got to thinking about, well, when am I going to go and enjoy my life? And I decided a couple of years ago that I was going to start to take more time off, step away more from my business, so that I can have the free time to go back to do the things that I've always enjoyed, and that is to train and to keep fit, to start new ventures, and also to finally now go travel and travel for as long as I want. And I think we tend to forget about that, and we tend to think that, well, when we get older, we'll do all these things, but it's not the same when you're in your 60s and maybe your energy's low. Maybe my energy's high, but then my wife's energy might not be the same level as mine. So walking long distances is not ideal for her. So we never know what's going to happen And I decided, well, I don't want to leave the chance, because now that we're healthy, I'm able still to do the things that I want to do. It's the time to go. But I look at my friends who got to travel when they were in their 20s, early 20s, just before college or after they finished college, and they got to go to Australia for half a year, backpacking around. And I thought, wow, they're so lucky, because that experience that they have of just traveling around Australia or backpacking, that's something that I would never get a chance to do. Did they have money back then? Of course not. But they lived in hostels. But they still talk about that experience they had when they were 20s. And I never got to have that. And in my 50s now, there's no way I'm going to go back to be able to backpack. And I certainly don't have my friends around anymore to go on these long excursions, because at that time, you have four or five friends that you can go with, and now everyone's got responsibilities, they got families, they got different needs, and I felt like I've missed the boat on that part. But I try to stay positive and create new memories and new experiences. To me, I try not to dwell too much on the past, because the past is the past, and everyone's book chapters are written differently. And as I always explain to my mom, because my mom feels guilty, my dad feels guilty at times that he didn't spend as much time as he wanted to when we were kids, you can't take that back. It is what it is. And I think there's a lot of positives to gain from that experience growing up. I maybe didn't get a chance to go on all these vacations and have these experiences with my parents, but the one thing they instilled with me through those years that I learned was to work hard and to be resilient and to think of the box. And that served me so well in business. And I think it's given me actually a great advantage too, because my thinking and the way I approach business is a lot different than a person that thinks about business or thinks about starting new business. I don't think they realize how much of a challenge it is and how much work you have to put in to have a business succeed. And I'm fortunate to be able to do that. And I hope that many of you out there, especially if you're younger, even if you're in your 50s, are thinking about just stepping away even a little bit to enjoy life, because that is what we are here for. Because if you look at the trajectory of our lives, your money can keep going up like this, but your health will always be like this. And I find this when, especially just an analogy, when I train jiu-jitsu and I train with the younger people, in my mind I still feel like I am in my 30s. And at times, when I spar with them, it feels pretty good. But I also know that I can also feel age creeping in. That is, I know that I have to use a certain technique and I have to go to a certain spot to execute it, but my body doesn't react the way it used to. So I'm a little bit slower. I oftentimes I feel like I'm in denial, but at the same time, what can you do? What can you do as an older practitioner? The one thing I always explain to them is I'm just happy to be sharing the mats with my students, to be able to train at this age and to be injury-free. And I always explain to them that to not take it so hard when you don't win every match, because we all get older. It's a fact of life. And I explained to them, I used the analogy of why does every professional player in sports have to retire? Michael Jordan in basketball, Wayne Gretzky in hockey. They all have to call it a day and move on to something else because their body cannot keep up with the young people. But why does martial arts perpetuate this myth that the master gets stronger as they get older? As you see in the Kung Fu movies, the master, the older guy, beating up 4 to 5 guys at one time. But that never happens in real life. So we have to be realistic. We have to be honest with ourselves. And what age has taught me is to not take your health for granted. And the time is now to do things. Don't delay. The third and last thing I would tell my 20-year-old self on what I would do differently is to stop measuring your status with other people. And by doing so, you're going to free your mind of all the stresses that are associated with it. When I was younger, I remember when we didn't have any money, and I was invited over to a birthday party at my friend's house. And this was when I was, I think, 9 years old. And I remember my mother dropping me off at the house, and his father was this big shot lawyer, and he had this beautiful, beautiful big house. And as a kid, I thought it was, wow, this is like a mansion. He had so many rooms, a spiral staircase, and I was so impressed by it. And I rushed home after the party, and I told my parents, wow, Chris has got such a huge house. And my parents just kind of laughed and said, well, if you want that, you keep working hard, you study school, and you'll get that. And I became enamored by this feeling of if I make it and I got the ability to buy these things, that I would get respect. Because when I was growing up, there's families that looked down upon, my parents. I didn't have the nice clothes that the other kids had. My parents would shop at Kmart and be very frugal with their money. And I always said to myself, well, when I get older, I'm going to not have that feeling of being left behind again. And I remember when I moved out away to work to another city, I would go to the shopping mall and just walk around for hours, window shopping, because I couldn't afford anything. And I used to just look at the stuff that was on sale and say to myself, well, one day I'm going to be able to afford all these things in here. And I'm not going to feel deprived. And I held that belief till later on when I started to make money and to earn a significant income from my businesses. And I now walk through that same mall, and I probably spend half an hour in there just to pick up what I need. But I don't have that feeling to buy things anymore. And I explained to my wife, I said, this is a weird feeling because when I was younger, I used to want to buy nice clothes and buy these nice things. But looking back at it, I think about like how much money I wasted because all it just did was cause me stress. Sometimes I'll buy it on credit card and I'll be trying to pay it off for months. And I think of all the interest I paid just trying to service that debt. And now when I go buy something or I go look to buy something, I always ask myself the first question, and I wish that I knew this when I was in my 20s. And this is what I tell my 20-year-old self, and that is, okay, what are you buying for? Is it to please other people? Do you actually enjoy it? And number 3, do you need it? And when I go buy something, I notice my wife, she loves fashion. She loves all these things. And she'll say, well, why don't you buy these shoes? They're nice. And I say, well, what's wrong with the shoes I have at home? I have two pairs already. They're hardly worn, and they're fine. I don't need a third pair. So when I go through the closet and I see my wife's all the clothes that she has in there, think to myself, well, what a waste, because I try to keep everything in on one, I think a couple of shirts and a couple of pairs of pants. And I'm trying to pare down now to keep it the size of a suitcase, because I really don't need all that stuff. To me, it stresses me out. And what I also found that if I have to get up in the morning and choose and decide what I have to wear, it actually takes away from my mental energy from creating things and being more creative with my business and thinking up new business ideas. As you can see, I wear this blue hoodie a lot, and I think when I get up in the morning now, I just have this to worry about. I buy a few white T-shirts, because then I could wear the same color every day, and a pair of sweatpants that I walk around in. And to me, that it just lowers the stress level. I feel less of a burden, and I really don't care what people think. Even a lot of meetings I go for business, I just wear a pair of sweatpants and a T-shirt, unless I need to wear a suit and tie, which is very, very rare, next to none. And I think that's important, to give yourself mental peace and so forth. And what I think interesting about this is, I ask myself also if the product brings me joy, because I remember my brother-in-law making fun of me and saying, well, why don't you get a new car? You might as well enjoy while you can. And I remember going to the dealership and sitting there in this new car, and I thought, okay, well, it's going to cost me X amount of money. Do I need it? And first I thought, okay, well, it's pretty nice. But I said, you know what? I'm not going to make a decision today. I'm going to go home and think about it. So when I went home and thought about it, I asked myself, why do I need a new car? Because the car I have, which is a Honda, good cars, by the way, it's only 6 years old and it works great. I don't have to worry about, it breaking down. It's cheap. I have no payments on it. It's fully paid off. Now contrast that to one of my neighbors. They got a Porsche, and within 1 week I asked them, how do you like it? And they said, we love it, but when we drive it out, we get worried, because everywhere we park it, we worry about people denting it or their doors hitting their car. And I thought to myself, well, do I really need a new car? Because I'm not much a car person. I'm not the person that sits out in front of my garage and washes and busts my car every day. That's not me. I'd rather have low maintenance, and I don't care if it drives to the ground. And that's exactly what I want to do with it. And I started thinking to myself, well, what is important in my life in my 50s? And it's number one is the health, okay? Because without the health, nothing's enjoyable. And number two is I basically want free time to do what I want. I want to own my time. And so I could go travel, I can go work out, I can go spend time with the friends that I want to spend time with. Basically, that to me is ultimate wealth and ultimate freedom. Not the fancy house, all those things. And that has given me great peace. And I couldn't be happier. That probably one of the happiest times now is right now in my life, where I have this opportunity to experience life and to not have to worry about bills hanging over me. That is what I would tell my 20-year-old self. All these things. I'd always think back to if I can go back in time. But once again, try not to have regrets. And I try to work on things now that will give me joy and pleasure for the rest of my life on this earth. I hope that resonates with you, and if you like the content I have been putting on here on YouTube, please feel free to like or subscribe, and feel free to check out my next video here. All right. Talk to you soon and take care. I'll see you next time. Bye now.